A millionaire threw a tied-up horse out of a plane, and what happened next left the whole world in shock. The cameras caught everything, and the truth behind this shocking act is even more unbelievable than you think. What happened to the horse? And to the man behind it, you won't believe how this story ends. Stay until the end and discover the twist no one saw coming. And if you love surprising stories like this, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. The invitation had arrived on embossed stationery, hand-delivered by a courier. In a sleek black suit, Olivia Reed, environmental activist and undercover journalist, examined the heavy cream paper with its gold lettering. You are cordially invited to participate in a once-in-a-lifetime experience hosted by Carson Blackwood. The event promised to be exclusive, restricted to a select group of influencers and high-ranking executives. Carson Blackwood, the eccentric tech billionaire from Silicon Valley, was known for his extravagant parties and complete indifference to criticism. Olivia tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear as she packed her bag. She wasn't officially invited as herself. She was going undercover as Sophia Mills, fashion influencer and socialite. Her real purpose was to document Blackwood's rumored unethical treatment of animals in his experimental research facilities. The Wildlife Protection Alliance had received anonymous tips about Blackwood's latest venture, something involving animal testing that crossed ethical boundaries. After months of careful preparation, creating a believable online presence as Sophia, Olivia had finally caught the attention of Blackwood's team. The morning of the event arrived with clear skies over San Francisco. Olivia dressed carefully in designer clothes borrowed from the magazine where she occasionally worked. Her heart raced as she applied her makeup, knowing that this could be the story that would finally expose Blackwood's true nature to the world. She practiced her socialite laugh in the mirror one last time before heading to the private airstrip where the guests were instructed to meet. The Blackwood Technologies private airstrip buzzed with activity. Sleek cars dropped off glamorous. Guests who posed for selfies before boarding. Television personalities, tech entrepreneurs, and social media stars mingled, all speculating about where they were being taken. Carson Blackwood had only specified that they were heading to a location that will change your perspective on reality itself. Sophia Mills, a tall assistant with a tablet, approached her. "Mr. Blackwood is pleased you could join us. Please follow me." Olivia nodded, adopting the confident strut she'd practiced for weeks. The assistant led her to the gleaming white private jet that dominated the tarmac. Its size was impressive, looking more like a flying mansion than a conventional aircraft. The Blackwood logo, a stylized phoenix rising from abstract flames, was emblazoned on the tail. Inside, the luxury continued. The cabin had been designed to resemble an exclusive lounge, with leather seating areas arranged around coffee tables, a fully stocked bar, and even what appeared to be a small art gallery featuring pieces from Blackwood's personal collection. The guests murmured appreciatively as they found their seats and accepted champagne from uniformed flight attendants. "Ladies and gentlemen," a smooth voice announced over the intercom, "please secure your personal belongings for takeoff. Our flight time today will be approximately 3 hours. Mr. Blackwood will join you shortly after we reach cruising altitude." Olivia settled into her seat, discreetly activating the recording device disguised as a designer bracelet on her wrist. She engaged in small talk with a YouTube star seated beside her, feigning excitement about the mystery destination while scanning the cabin for anything unusual. Everything seemed normal, if excessively luxurious, until she noticed a large section at the rear of the plane curtained off from view. As they reached cruising altitude, the atmosphere aboard the jet was electric with anticipation. Social media influencers streamed live updates to their followers. Executives made confident predictions about what Blackwood might be planning to announce, and everyone speculated about the destination. Carson Blackwood finally emerged from his private quarters at the front of the plane. Tall and imposing, with sharp features and prematurely silver hair, he carried himself with the absolute confidence that came from wielding immense wealth and power. His custom-tailored suit probably cost more than what most people earned in a year. "Welcome, friends," he said, his voice commanding immediate attention. "I appreciate you all taking time from your busy schedules to join me today. What I'm about to show you represents the future, not just of my company, but of human potential itself." The cabin fell silent as Blackwood moved toward the curtained section. With a theatrical flourish, he pulled back the heavy fabric to reveal what lay behind. A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests. In the center of the sectioned-off area stood a magnificent Arabian horse. The animal was sedated, but still standing, secured by a complex harness system. Its chestnut coat gleamed under the cabin lights, and despite its drugged state, the power and grace of the creature was evident. "Meet Thunderbolt," Blackwood announced proudly. "Thoroughbred, 5 years old, and about to make history." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Some guests laughed nervously, assuming this was some elaborate joke or metaphor. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "As you know," Blackwood continued, "my company has been developing next-generation impact absorption technology. Today, we're conducting the ultimate field test." He smiled as though he'd just announced something completely reasonable. "At precisely the right moment, Thunderbolt here will be experiencing a controlled descent from this aircraft, equipped with our proprietary safe fall technology." The murmurs turned to shocked silence. Olivia felt her stomach twist into knots. This wasn't a metaphor or a joke. Blackwood was seriously planning to throw a living animal from the plane to test some product. "The safe fall system," Blackwood continued, oblivious to the horror on some faces, "consists of a revolutionary fabric that becomes rigid upon reaching certain velocities, creating an optimal impact absorption ratio. If successful, this technology will revolutionize everything from vehicle safety to military applications." One executive raised his hand hesitantly. "Carson, surely you're not actually planning to drop a live horse from this airplane? That has to violate about a dozen animal welfare laws." Blackwood's smile never wavered. "The beauty of international airspace, Richard, is that certain jurisdictional constraints become flexible. Rest assured, our simulations predict a 98.7% survival rate for our equine volunteer." Olivia struggled to maintain her composure. She needed to stay in character to not blow her cover, but every instinct screamed at her to intervene. Her mind raced through possibilities as Blackwood's team began preparations, adjusting equipment around the horse and checking monitors. For those concerned about ethics, Blackwood addressed the uncomfortable silence. "Consider the greater good. This test will help us perfect technology that could save countless human lives in the future." Several guests nodded, seemingly reassured by this explanation. Others still looked uncertain, but weren't willing to challenge someone as powerful as Blackwood. Olivia noticed a few were discreetly leaving the main cabin, heading toward the front of the plane to distance themselves from what was about to happen. The flight attendants began serving stronger drinks. Olivia accepted one, pretending to sip while keeping her wits intact. She needed a distraction, something to delay Blackwood's twisted experiment long enough to figure out how to stop it completely. The plane began to climb higher, positioning for the optimal test altitude, as Blackwood called it. His assistants moved with practiced efficiency, checking instruments and making adjustments to the harness around Thunderbolt. The sedated horse shifted slightly, as though some part of its consciousness sensed the danger it was in. "We'll be ready for the demonstration in approximately 15 minutes, one of the technicians informed Blackwood, who nodded with satisfaction. Olivia knew she had to act. Maintaining her Sophia Mills persona, she approached Blackwood with a calculated smile. "Mr. Blackwood, this is absolutely fascinating," she gushed, recording every word with her concealed device. "For my followers, could I perhaps get some footage of the technology itself? The close-up details of the material would make for amazing content." Blackwood seemed pleased by her interest. "Of course, Sophia. Jason here will show you the components." He gestured to one of his assistants. "The material itself is quite remarkable, developed through a proprietary process involving carbon nanotubes and a classified polymer matrix." Jason led her toward a display case containing samples of the safe fall material. Olivia's mind worked frantically. The horse, the plane, the gathered witnesses. This was far worse than anything she had anticipated exposing. She needed more than just documentation now. She needed to prevent a living creature from being harmed for a publicity stunt. A sudden jolt shook the aircraft. The lights flickered momentarily and a faint alarm sounded from the cockpit. Jason paused, looking concerned. Olivia felt a surge of hope. Perhaps a technical issue would force them to abort the demonstration. "Minor turbulence," Blackwood announced, waving dismissively. "Nothing to worry about. Please continue with preparations." But a second, stronger jolt followed, and this time the lights didn't just flicker, they went out completely before the emergency lighting activated. The plane lurched sideways, causing several guests to stumble. Champagne glasses shattered on the floor. "Sir," a voice called from the cockpit, "we're experiencing some electrical system issues. I recommend postponing the demonstration." Blackwood's expression darkened. "Is the aircraft in danger?" "Not immediately, sir, but then proceed as planned. We have a schedule to maintain." Olivia exchanged glances with some of the other guests, who were now looking genuinely alarmed. The combination of a visibly agitated billionaire, a sedated horse, and an aircraft with electrical problems was making everyone uneasy. As the crew continued preparing for the demonstration, despite the interruptions, Olivia edged closer to the sectioned area where Thunderbolt stood. She needed to find a way to sabotage the equipment without being caught, or at minimum, to gather more evidence of Blackwood's intentions. The recording device on her wrist could capture audio, but she needed visual proof of the entire setup. Another alarm sounded, louder this time. The aircraft banked sharply, causing everyone to grab for support. Something was clearly wrong beyond minor turbulence or electrical glitches. Olivia saw her opportunity in the growing chaos. As Blackwood strode toward the cockpit to demand answers, she slipped behind the curtain into Thunderbolt's enclosure. The horse's dark eyes, though glazed with sedation, seemed to follow Olivia as she approached. Up close, she could see the intricate harness system that held Thunderbolt in place, a complex arrangement of straps and buckles connected to what must be the SafeFall technology. Her fingers moved swiftly, documenting everything with her hidden camera while searching for a way to disable the mechanism. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Ms. Mills? Or should I say, Ms. Reed?" Olivia froze. Carson Blackwood stood at the entrance to the enclosure, his expression cold and calculating. Behind him, 2 security personnel blocked any escape route. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "I just wanted to get a closer look at Thunderbolt. He's magnificent." Blackwood's thin smile never reached his eyes. Olivia Reed, environmental activist and occasional journalist. "Did you really think I wouldn't run background checks on every person who steps onto my aircraft? Your Sophia Mills persona was convincing on social media. In person, you have a rather distinctive scar on your left wrist that doesn't appear in any of Sophia's photos." Olivia instinctively covered her wrist, where a childhood accident had left a small, crescent-shaped mark. She'd forgotten to conceal it with makeup. "The Wildlife Protection Alliance sent you, I presume," Blackwood continued, stepping closer. "They've been a thorn in my side for years. Always so concerned about a few animals when my work is advancing human potential. The plane lurched again, more violently this time. The overhead compartment sprang open, spilling their contents. Screams echoed from the main cabin. "Sir!" A panicked voice called from the cockpit. "We've lost primary electrical systems. The backup generators are failing." Blackwood's face contorted with rage. "Fix it. This demonstration will proceed as planned." Olivia seized her chance in the moment of distraction. She lunged toward Thunderbolt, fingers working frantically at the buckles securing the horse. The animal stirred, sensing the activity around him. "Stop her!" Blackwood shouted. The two security guards moved forward, but another violent shudder of the aircraft sent them stumbling. Warning lights flashed throughout the cabin. The rear mechanism that had been prepared for Thunderbolt's experiment began to malfunction, panel indicators blinking from green to red. "System failure," an automated voice announced over the intercom. "Emergency protocols engaged." Chaos erupted. In the main cabin, guests who had been sipping champagne moments before were now scrambling for oxygen masks descending from the ceiling. The luxury jet was rapidly becoming a scene of panic and disorder. Blackwood fought his way through the tilting cabin toward Olivia and Thunderbolt. "You've ruined everything," he snarled, grabbing her arm. "Years of research, millions in development." "You were going to sacrifice an innocent animal for a publicity stunt," Olivia shouted back, twisting free of his grip. The aircraft banked sharply to the left, and the floor seemed to drop beneath them. Blackwood lost his balance, stumbling backward toward the malfunctioning rear door. His eyes widened with sudden fear as he realized his position. "Help me," he called to his security team, but they were occupied with their own struggle to remain upright as the plane continued its erratic movements. Olivia lunged forward, extending her hand toward Blackwood, but it was too late. The door's seal had partially disengaged during the electrical failure. The sudden pressure differential created a powerful suction effect. With a look of utter disbelief on his face, Carson Blackwood was pulled through the gap before the emergency systems slammed the door shut again. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of emergency alarms and the strained breathing of terrified passengers. Olivia stood frozen, her outstretched hand still reaching toward where Blackwood had been standing moments before. "Everyone secure yourselves," the pilot's voice commanded over the intercom. "We're attempting an emergency landing." Olivia's training kicked in. She quickly finished unbuckling Thunderbolt from the experimental harness, then secured herself and the horse as best she could, using the aircraft's built-in restraints. The sedation was wearing off, making the animal increasingly agitated by the chaos around them. "It's okay," she whispered, stroking the horse's neck. "We're going to get through this." The descent was steep and fast. Through the windows, Olivia could see they were no longer over the ocean as planned for Blackwood's demonstration. Instead, green landscape rushed up to meet them. They appeared to be over some kind of forested area, with mountains visible in the distance. "Brace for impact," came the final warning before the luxury jet met the earth. The collision was violent, but not as catastrophic as it could have been. The pilots had managed to bring the aircraft down in what appeared to be a relatively flat, grassy area between forest sections. The landing gear collapsed upon impact, and the plane skidded along the ground for several hundred yards, tearing up soil and vegetation before finally coming to rest. For several moments, no one moved. Then, slowly, sounds of movement and moaning filled the cabin as the survivors assessed their situation. Miraculously, the fuselage had remained largely intact, though the interior was in complete disarray. "Is everyone all right?" someone called out. Gradually, the passengers and crew gathered in the central cabin area. There were injuries, cuts, bruises, possibly some broken bones, but everyone aboard the aircraft had survived the crash. Everyone except Carson Blackwood. "Where are we?" a social media influencer asked, clutching her designer handbag like a lifeline. One of the pilots, his uniform torn and a cut bleeding above his eye, consulted a handheld device. "Based on our last coordinates, we're somewhere in the Cascade Mountains in Washington state. We veered significantly off course during the electrical failure. Has a distress signal been sent?" Olivia asked. The pilot nodded. "Automatically, yes, but I don't know if it went through before our systems failed completely, and even if it did." He gestured to their surroundings. "This is remote terrain. Rescue could take days." Olivia turned her attention back to Thunderbolt. The horse had weathered the crash remarkably well, perhaps protected by the specialized restraints that had been intended for Blackwood's cruel experiment. Now fully awake, the animal was understandably skittish, but not panicked. "What about him?" someone asked, pointing at Thunderbolt. "What was Blackwood thinking, bringing a horse on a plane?" Olivia briefly explained the demonstration Blackwood had planned. Horror spread across the faces of those who hadn't been close enough to understand what was happening before the emergency. That's inhumane," a tech executive stammered. "I had no idea that's what this trip was about." "Blackwood always pushed boundaries," another guest commented, "but this is beyond anything I could have imagined." As the initial shock wore off, the group began to organize themselves. Those with medical training attended to the injured. Others salvaged supplies from the wreckage: water, food, first aid kits, anything that might prove useful until rescue arrived. Olivia found herself naturally assuming a leadership role, perhaps because she was one of the few who hadn't been completely blindsided by the day's events. Her work as an activist had prepared her for crisis situations, though admittedly nothing quite like this. "We need to establish shelter," she announced to the group. "Night will fall eventually, and we don't know how long we'll be here. We should also ration the food and water just in case." No one argued with her suggestions. Even the celebrities and executives, accustomed to giving orders rather than taking them, seemed relieved to have someone taking charge. As the day progressed, they established a makeshift camp around the wreckage. The plane itself provided some shelter, though many were uncomfortable remaining inside the damaged fuselage. Using seat cushions, blankets, and other materials salvaged from the aircraft, they created a habitable space. Olivia attended to Thunderbolt, moving the horse to a grassy area where he could graze. She fashioned a simple rope halter from materials found in the plane, allowing her to keep the animal close without restraining him too severely. As dusk approached, an uneasy quiet settled over the group. The reality of their situation was sinking, and they were stranded in the wilderness with uncertain prospects of immediate rescue. The conversation inevitably turned to Carson Blackwood. "Do you think there's any chance he survived?" someone asked quietly. No one answered immediately. They had all seen the impossible force with which he had been pulled from the aircraft. If he was wearing the safeful technology he was so proud of, maybe, Olivia finally said, though she didn't believe it herself. But even then, should we search for him? Suggested one of Blackwood's assistants, clearly distressed by the loss of his employer. The pilots exchanged glances. "Not advisable," the captain said firmly. "It's getting dark. The terrain is treacherous, and we don't even know exactly where he would have landed. Our priority needs to be the safety of the survivors here." No one pushed the issue further. Instead, they focused on immediate concerns, treating injuries, establishing watch rotations, and trying to boost the signal of their personal devices in hopes of contacting the outside world. As night fell completely, the group gathered around a small fire they had managed to build, using emergency equipment from the aircraft. The stars emerged above them, countless and brilliant in the absence of light pollution. Under different circumstances, it might have been beautiful. "I keep thinking about what Blackwood was planning to do," one of the influencers said, breaking the contemplative silence. "I've attended his events before, endorsed his products. If I had known this was the kind of thing he was involved in." "He was careful about his image," Olivia explained. That's why I was there, to document what was really happening behind the carefully managed public persona. But throwing a horse from a plane, it's insane, a tech executive added, even for Blackwood, who always had a reputation for being unconventional. Olivia looked over at Thunderbolt, now calmly grazing at the edge of their makeshift camp. People with that much power sometimes start believing they're above not just the law, but basic decency. They stop seeing the consequences of their actions. A somber mood settled over the group as they contemplated this. Many of them moved in the same elite circles as Blackwood, benefiting from similar systems of privilege and influence. The crash had stripped away those systems, leaving them vulnerable in ways they rarely experienced. "Listen," one of the pilots suddenly said, holding up a hand for silence. "Do you hear that?" Everyone froze, straining to catch whatever had. It caught his attention. At first, there was nothing but the crackling of their fire and the gentle sounds of the forest at night. Then faintly but distinctly came a sound that didn't belong, something mechanical, rhythmic, like footsteps, but too regular, too measured. "It's coming from the trees," someone whispered, pointing to the dense forest edge about 50 yards from their camp. Olivia grabbed a flashlight and directed its beam toward the indicated spot. For a moment she saw nothing. Then a figure emerged from between the trees. The beam caught something reflective, a face shield or goggles, before whoever it was ducked back into the shadows. "Hello," Olivia called out. "We're survivors from the plane crash. We need help." No response came. Instead, the mechanical sounds faded, as though whoever had been watching them was retreating deeper into the forest. "What was that?" someone asked, voice trembling. "I don't know," Olivia admitted, "but I think we're not as alone out here as we thought." The night grew tenser after that. Every sound from the surrounding wilderness drew nervous glances. The watch rotation was doubled, with people taking shorter shifts to ensure alertness. Olivia found sleep impossible. Her mind kept returning to Blackwood, to his final moments on the plane, to the mysterious figure in the woods. None of it made sense. She had come to document unethical animal treatment, not to witness whatever this had become. Near dawn, as the eastern sky began to lighten almost imperceptibly, Olivia noticed Thunderbolt's behavior change. The horse's ears pricked forward, his attention fixed on something in the distance. She followed his gaze, but could see nothing in the pre-dawn gloom. Slowly, carefully, she approached the animal, speaking softly to avoid startling him. When she reached his side, she placed a gentle hand on his neck, feeling the muscles tense beneath her touch. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. "What do you see?" As if in answer, a faint sound reached her ears, the same mechanical rhythm they had heard during the night, but now coming from a different direction. Turning slowly, she scanned the perimeter of their camp. Dawn broke over the crash site, revealing their surroundings in full daylight for the first time. The luxury jet lay partially embedded in the earth, its once gleaming white fuselage now dirty and damaged. Around it stretched a small clearing, perhaps half a mile across, surrounded by dense pine forest. In the distance, mountain peaks rose against the clear blue sky. "Any luck with communications?" Olivia asked the pilot, who had been working through the night with a salvaged radio system. He shook his head wearily. "Nothing consistent. I got a partial signal out around 3 a.m., but I can't confirm if anyone received it. The electrical system is too damaged." The survivors gathered for a breakfast of rationed snacks and bottled water from the plane's galley. The mood was subdued, but no longer panicked. They had survived the night, and daylight brought renewed hope for rescue. "We should send a scouting party," suggested Bradley Thompson, a venture capitalist who had been one of Blackwood's earliest investors. "Find high ground, try to determine exactly where we are, maybe spot signs of civilization." "I agree," Olivia said, "but we need to be careful. We don't know this terrain, and we have injured people who can't be left alone." They eventually settled on a plan. Bradley would lead a small group to a nearby ridge that promised a better vantage point. Olivia would stay with the main camp, continuing to organize supplies and care for the wounded, and Thunderbolt, who had become something of a mascot for the survivors. As Bradley's group prepared to depart, Olivia pulled him aside. "About last night," she said quietly. "The figure in the woods. Keep an eye out, okay? It could be someone who can help us, but it could also be trouble," he finished. "I understand. We'll be cautious." The scouting party set off, carrying improvised walking sticks and a few supplies. The remaining survivors continued improving their camp, constructing better shelters, using materials from the plain and surrounding forest. Olivia was checking on a young influencer with a sprained ankle when she noticed Thunderbolt acting strangely. Again, the horse stood at attention, ears forward, eyes fixed on the eastern edge of the clearing, opposite from where Bradley's group had headed. "What is it, boy?" she murmured, approaching slowly. The horse nickered softly, pawing at the ground. Something was definitely catching his attention. Olivia stared into the tree line, squinting against the morning sun that dappled through the branches. There, a flash of movement, something metallic reflecting sunlight. Then it was gone. "Hey!" she called out. "Is someone there? We need help!" No response came. But as she watched, she noticed something on the ground near the forest edge that hadn't been there before, a small metallic object catching the sunlight. Cautiously, Olivia approached. As she drew closer, she recognized it as a high-tech first aid kit, far more advanced than anything they'd salvaged from the plane. It hadn't been there earlier. Someone had deliberately left it for them to find. She scanned the tree line again, but saw no movement. Whoever had left this was gone, or hidden well enough that she couldn't spot them. She picked up the kit and returned to camp. "Look what I found," she announced, showing the others. "Someone left this at the edge of the clearing." The survivors gathered around, examining the sleek metal case. The Blackwood Technologies logo was emblazoned on its cover. "That's one of our prototype field medical units," said Jasmine Park, Blackwood's head of product development who had been on the flight. "They're not even in production yet. The only ones that exist are at the research facility." "So how did it get here?" someone asked. No one had an answer. They opened the kit to find an impressive array of medical supplies. Advanced wound dressings, antibiotics, pain relievers, even a small electronic device that appeared to be some kind of diagnostic tool. "This is exactly what we needed," said Dana Williams, a retired nurse who had been treating the injured. "With these supplies, I can properly care for everyone." As Dana organized the medical supplies, Olivia returned to the spot where she'd found the kit. She searched the ground carefully, looking for tracks or any clue to their mysterious benefactor's identity. The soil was soft enough to hold impressions, and she soon found what she was looking for. Footprints, but unlike any she'd seen before. They were too regular, too precise, with an unusual pattern that didn't match any hiking boot or shoe she recognized. They led into the forest and then disappeared after about 50 yards, as though whoever had made them had simply vanished. Olivia was still pondering this mystery when Bradley's scouting party returned around midday. Their expressions were troubled. "We found something," Bradley said without preamble, "about 2 miles west of here, a research facility, Blackwood Technologies." Murmurs of surprise ran through the gathered survivors. "It looks abandoned," Bradley continued. "No visible personnel, no vehicles, but it's definitely one of Blackwood's facilities. His logo is everywhere. That can't be a coincidence," Jasmine said. "Carson must have been bringing us here all along. This wasn't just about the safe fall demonstration. He wanted to show us something at the facility." "But why crash here?" someone asked. "Why not just land normally?" "The crash wasn't planned," the pilot interjected firmly. "I can assure you of that. The electrical failure was catastrophic. We're lucky to be alive." "Wait," Olivia said, holding up the medical kit. "If the facility is abandoned, where did this come from? And who was watching us last night?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the group as they considered the implications. "I think," Bradley said slowly, "that we should investigate the facility. It might have communications equipment we can use to call for help and answers about what's going on." Not everyone was convinced this was a good idea, but after discussion, they agreed to send another expedition the following morning. The injured would remain at the crash site with a few caregivers, while a larger group would explore the research facility. As the day progressed into evening, Olivia found herself drawn to Thunderbolt again. The horse had calmed significantly since the crash, adjusting to their improvised camp with remarkable adaptability. She brushed his coat with a makeshift brush fashioned from materials found in the plane, talking softly to him. What was Blackwood thinking, bringing you on that plane? She wondered aloud. What was so important about that demonstration that he risked everything for it? The safe fall technology was his obsession, said a voice behind her. Olivia turned to find Jasmine standing there, watching her with the horse. He believed it would revolutionize safety systems worldwide, Jasmine continued, but the board was threatening to cut funding after the last 3 prototypes failed. He needed a dramatic demonstration to secure continued support. So he was going. "To throw a horse out of a plane?" Olivia asked incredulously. Jasmine looked uncomfortable. "I didn't know about that part until we were on the plane." Carson had become increasingly erratic in recent months, desperate to prove his theories correct. "And now he's gone," Olivia said quietly, "and we're stranded near one of his secret facilities. None of this feels like coincidence." "It might not be," Jasmine admitted. Carson was working on something big at this particular facility, something beyond the safe fall technology. He called it Project Phoenix. Like his company logo, the phoenix rising from the flames? Jasmine nodded. He wouldn't tell even his senior staff exactly what it entailed, just that it would transcend the limitations of human existence. His words, not mine. Before Olivia could ask more questions, a commotion arose from the campsite. Someone was shouting excitedly. They hurried back to find one of the social media influencers, Tyler Jenkins, waving his phone triumphantly. "I got a signal," he exclaimed. "Just for a minute, but I connected. My Instagram post about the crash went through." Hope surged through the group. If one phone had connected, even briefly, it meant they weren't completely cut off. The news energized everyone, spurring renewed efforts to establish communication with the outside world. As night fell again, the camp settled into a more organized routine than the previous evening. Watch shifts were established, the fire was maintained at a safe distance from the shelters, and the injured rested more comfortably thanks to the mysterious medical supplies. Olivia volunteered for the midnight watch. As the others slept, she sat by the fire, occasionally feeding it small branches to maintain its warmth in the cool mountain air. Thunderbolt stood nearby, seemingly preferring her company to solitude. The night was clear, stars brilliantly visible above the clearing. Olivia found herself contemplating the strange series of events that had brought them here. She had intended to expose Blackwood's unethical treatment of animals, but now the man himself was gone, possibly lost forever. Yet his presence still seemed to linger around them. In the research facility nearby, in the mysterious figure watching from the forest, in the high-tech medical kit that had appeared out of nowhere. A soft sound broke her reverie, the snap of a twig at the forest edge. Olivia tensed, reaching for the flashlight beside her. She stood, slowly pointing the beam toward the source of the sound. For a moment she saw nothing. Then movement. A figure stood at the tree line, partially obscured by shadows. The flashlight beam caught what appeared to be a face, but something was wrong with it. Too smooth, too regular to be human. "Who's there?" Olivia called loud enough to alert the sleeping survivors, but not so loud as to startle whoever or whatever was watching them. The figure remained still for a moment, then raised an arm in what might have been a gesture of greeting or warning. Olivia took a step forward, lowering the flashlight slightly. "We need help," she said, keeping her voice calm and clear. "Are you from the research facility?" The figure at the tree line didn't respond to Olivia's question. Instead, it retreated slowly into the darkness, the mechanical sound of its movement fading gradually. "Wait!" Olivia called, but it was too late. Whoever or whatever had been watching them was gone again. By now, others in the camp had awakened, aroused by Olivia's call. "What happened?" Bradley asked, hurrying to her side with an improvised weapon in hand. "Our observer is back," Olivia explained, pointing to where the figure had stood. "I almost made contact this time." A small search party ventured to the spot with flashlights, but found only the same strange footprints Olivia had discovered earlier. Too regular, too precise to be human. They led into the forest before disappearing abruptly, as though their maker had simply vanished into thin air. Sleep was fitful for many after that. The mystery of their watcher, combined with their proximity to Blackwood's abandoned research facility, created an atmosphere of uneasy anticipation. Morning couldn't come soon enough. When dawn finally broke, the group prepared for their expedition to the research facility. 12 of the survivors would go, including Olivia, Bradley, and Jasmine. The others would remain at the camp with the injured. "What about Thunderbolt?" someone asked, gesturing to the horse. "He comes with us," Olivia decided, fashioning a better lead rope from salvaged materials. "I don't want to leave him behind, and he seems to sense things we don't." No one argued. In the short time since the crash, the horse had become something of a talisman for the group, a living reminder of what they had survived, and perhaps their connection to whatever fate had befallen Carson Blackwood. The journey to the research facility took just over an hour. As they approached, the structure came into view through the trees, a sleek, low-slung complex of glass and steel, surprisingly modern for its remote location. The Blackwood Technologies logo dominated the main entrance, a stylized phoenix rising from abstract flames. "It doesn't look abandoned," Olivia observed. "The building appeared maintained, with no obvious signs of neglect or disrepair." "But there's no one here," Bradley said, pointing out the empty parking area and absence of any visible personnel. No vehicles, no guards, nothing. They approached cautiously, expecting security measures, but the front entrance stood open. The doors slid apart automatically as they neared, as though the facility had been expecting visitors. "I don't like this," muttered one of the social media influencers who had come along. "It's too easy." Inside, the facility was immaculate. The reception area featured minimalist furniture, living plants, and soft ambient lighting that activated as they entered. A directory on the wall listed various sections: research lab, living quarters, medical bay, data center, and something called integration chamber. "This place is fully operational," Jasmine said, examining a computer terminal that sprang to life at her touch. "But where is everyone?" "Let's split up," Bradley suggested. "Cover more ground." "Bad idea," Olivia countered. "We stay together. Safety in numbers, especially when we don't know what we're dealing with." They decided to check the communications center first, hoping to find equipment they could use to contact the outside world. Following the directory's guidance, they made their way through sterile corridors that branched off in multiple directions like a labyrinth. Thunderbolt followed obediently, though his ears flicked nervously at the artificial environment. Olivia kept a reassuring hand on his neck, drawing comfort from the animal's solid presence amid the unsettling emptiness of the facility. The communications center, when they found it, was a disappointment. The equipment appeared functional, but all Outgoing channels were locked down, requiring authentication they didn't possess. "I can try to bypass it," offered Tyler, the tech-savvy influencer, "but it would take time and without knowing the security protocols." "Let's keep looking," Olivia said. "There must be other ways to call for help, or at least find out what this place is for." They moved on to the research labs, a series of interconnected spaces filled with advanced equipment, much of it unrecognizable even to Jasmine, who had worked closely with Blackwood's R&D teams. "This goes beyond anything in our main facilities," she said, examining a workstation with multiple holographic displays. Whatever Carson was doing here, it wasn't part of the company's public research portfolio. One lab caught Olivia's particular attention. Unlike the others, which were arranged for team collaboration, this one appeared designed for a single user. A central workstation faced a wall of screens, surrounded by what looked like medical monitoring equipment. "Project Phoenix," Bradley read from a plaque beside the door. "Restricted access, C, Blackwood only." "This must be what Jasmine mentioned," Olivia said. "Blackwood's secret project." Inside, the lab was meticulously organized, with notes and diagrams covering the walls. Most were incomprehensible to the group. Complex formulas, anatomical sketches fused with mechanical components, coding sequences that seemed to blend biology and technology. What was he working on? Olivia wondered aloud. Something that scared even his senior staff, Jasmine replied, her expression troubled as she examined the materials. He called it transcending human limitations, but wouldn't elaborate. As they explored further, Thunderbolt suddenly tensed. His ears pricked forward, and a low whicker escaped him. Olivia followed his gaze to a doorway at the far end of the lab, marked Integration Chamber. "Something's in there," she said quietly. The group approached the door cautiously. Unlike the others in the facility, this one didn't open automatically. A security panel beside it requested fingerprint and retinal identification. "We can't get in without Blackwood's biometrics," Bradley observed. Just as he spoke, the panel lit up green. The door slid open with a soft hydraulic hiss. "That's not possible," Jasmine whispered. "Unless someone else is here," Olivia said. "Someone with access." They entered the integration chamber slowly, alert for any sign of danger. The room beyond was circular, dominated by a central platform surrounded by complex machinery. Cables and tubes extended from the ceiling to connect with what appeared to be some kind of containment pod on the platform. The pod was transparent, filled with a clear fluid that bubbled gently. Inside floated what looked at first glance like a human figure, connected to the machinery by dozens of interfaces. But as they drew closer, they realized it wasn't entirely human. Parts of it were mechanical, integrated seamlessly with organic components. "Oh my God," Jasmine gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "It's Carson." Olivia stepped closer, disbelieving. But Jasmine was right. Despite the modifications, the face was unmistakably Blackwood's. Eyes closed, expression peaceful, suspended in the mysterious fluid. "He's alive?" Bradley asked incredulously. "In a manner of speaking," came a voice from behind them. They whirled to find a figure standing in the doorway, the same mechanical presence that had been watching their camp. In the full light of the facility, they could see it clearly for the first time, humanoid in basic shape, but obviously robotic, with a sleek exoskeleton and a face that mimicked human features while remaining distinctly artificial. "What are you?" Olivia demanded, instinctively placing herself between the robot and Thunderbolt. "I am an autonomous proxy unit," the robot replied, its voice surprisingly natural despite its artificial origin. "Created by Carson Blackwood to serve as his interface with the physical world while his consciousness integrates with the Phoenix Protocol." "His consciousness," Bradley repeated. Carson Blackwood's physical body was severely damaged in the fall, the robot explained. But his consciousness was preserved through technology developed here. Project Phoenix was designed to transcend the limitations of human mortality by transferring consciousness to a more durable vessel. He planned this, Jasmine realized. Looking from the robot to the suspended form in the pod, the demonstration, the crash, it was all staged to fake his death. Not entirely, the robot corrected. The electrical failure was unexpected. The original plan involved a controlled descent using the safe fall technology, followed by a staged disappearance. Adaptations were necessary. "So you've been watching us," Olivia said, "leaving supplies." The robot inclined its head in acknowledgement. "My primary directive is to ensure the success of Project Phoenix. A secondary directive is to minimize harm to innocent bystanders. You were not meant to be part of this scenario." "And the horse?" Olivia asked, her hand still protectively on Thunderbolt's neck. Was he really going to throw him from the plane? "The equine was never in genuine danger," the robot said. "The safe fall technology has been tested extensively with weighted dummies. The public demonstration was meant to be theatrical, shocking enough to ensure media coverage, while ultimately proving the technology's effectiveness when the animal emerged unharmed." "That's still exploitation," Olivia argued, "using a living creature for publicity." A perspective Carson Blackwood did not initially share, the robot acknowledged. However, his experience has proven transformative. "What do you mean?" Bradley asked. The robot gestured to a large monitor on the wall, which activated to show footage from cameras around the facility. "Observe." The screen displayed images of wildlife, deer moving through the forest, birds nesting in trees, even a mountain lion padding silently along a ridge. All carried small, barely noticeable devices attached to them. "Non-invasive monitoring technology," the robot explained, "developed to study and protect the ecosystem surrounding this facility, a project initiated by Carson Blackwood after his transformation began." "I don't understand," Olivia said. "Are you saying he's had a change of heart about animals?" "The Phoenix Protocol involves more than physical transformation," the robot replied. "The integration process allows for extensive neural recalibration. Carson Blackwood has been reviewing his life choices during this process. The ethics of his treatment of non-human living beings has been a significant focus." The group exchanged skeptical glances. The idea that Blackwood, known for his ruthless business practices and complete indifference to criticism, could experience such a fundamental change seemed implausible. "If that's true," Olivia challenged, "then he should have no problem with me exposing what he was planning to do on that plane." "You misunderstand," the robot said. "Carson Blackwood no longer exists as you knew him. The being emerging from Project Phoenix will retain his memories, but not necessarily his former values or priorities." As if on cue, the pod in the center of the room began to pulse with soft blue light. The fluid inside bubbled more vigorously, and the figure, Blackwood or what remained of him, stirred slightly. "The integration is approaching completion," the robot announced. "You should prepare yourselves." "For what?" Bradley asked nervously. "For meeting the new entity that was once Carson Blackwood." The room fell silent except for the gentle bubbling of the pod and the soft hum of machinery. Even Thunderbolt seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, standing perfectly still beside Olivia. Slowly, the fluid began to drain from the pod. The cables and tubes disconnected one by one, retracting into the ceiling. The transparent shell opened like a flower, revealing the figure inside in full detail for the first time. What rose from the pod was neither fully human nor fully machine, but a seamless blend of both. Blackwood's face was recognizable but altered, more serene, less harsh than they remembered. Parts of his body had been replaced or enhanced with advanced prosthetics that moved with fluid grace. His eyes, when they opened, glowed with a subtle inner light. "Carson?" Jasmine ventured hesitantly. The figure turned toward her, studying her face with evident recognition. "Jasmine, and Bradley, you're here." His voice was Blackwood's, but subtly changed, gentler, lacking the sharp edge of command it once carried. His gaze moved to the others, lingering longest on Olivia and Thunderbolt. The activist and the horse both survived. "Good. What are you?" Olivia asked directly. "I am evolving," he replied. "Neither who I was, nor yet who I will become. The Phoenix Protocol was designed to transcend human limitations, but I did not anticipate how it would change my perspective." He stepped from the platform, movements graceful despite the extensive modifications to his body. When the accident occurred, the real accident, not the staged demonstration I had planned, my proxy unit recovered what remained of my physical form and initiated emergency integration procedures. During the process, as my consciousness adapted to its new state, I experienced what you might call an awakening. "Convenient timing," Olivia said skeptically. "Not convenience, causation." Blackwood gestured to his transformed body. "This integration connects me to systems beyond myself in ways I never anticipated. I feel the networks of life now, the interconnections between all living things, including him." He nodded toward Thunderbolt. The horse, surprisingly, showed no fear of the transformed billionaire. Instead, he approached cautiously, nostrils flaring as he took in the strange new scent of the hybrid being. "I understand now what I could not before," Blackwood continued. "The arrogance of treating other living creatures as mere tools for human advancement. The hubris of believing technological progress justifies any means." "So what happens now?" Bradley asked. "You just start over after everything you've done?" "No," Blackwood said simply. "There must be accountability, restitution. My resources will be directed toward healing the damage I've caused, to the environment, to animals, to the ethical foundations of technological development." He turned to Olivia. "You came to expose my cruelty toward animals. You were right to do so. I authorize you to tell the full story, including what you've witnessed here." Olivia studied him, searching for signs of the manipulative billionaire she had intended to expose. But all she saw was a being genuinely transformed, for reasons she couldn't fully comprehend, but couldn't entirely dismiss either. "And us?" Jasmine asked. "The survivors? What about us?" "You will be rescued," Blackwood assured them. "My proxy unit has already sent the necessary signals. Helicopters will arrive within hours." "And you?" Bradley pressed. "Will you be returning to Blackwood Technologies as some kind of cyborg CEO?" Blackwood, or the entity he had become, shook his head. "Carson Blackwood, as the world knew him, is gone. The company will be restructured, its resources redirected toward truly beneficial innovations. I will work from here, in seclusion, guiding the transition from a distance." The conversation continued as the transformed billionaire explained his vision for the future, technologies that worked in harmony with nature rather than dominating it, research that prioritized ethical considerations alongside progress. A fundamental reshaping of his legacy from one of exploitation to restoration. Eventually, as promised, the sound of helicopter rotors broke the mountain stillness. Rescue had arrived, just as the strange new Blackwood had promised. As they prepared to leave the facility, Olivia found herself face to face with him one last time. "You're skeptical," he observed. "You have every right to be." "Actions matter more than words," she replied, "especially from someone with your history." "Indeed." He held out a small device, a secure drive containing data. "Everything is here. The SafeFall experiments, Project Phoenix, the Environmental Monitoring Initiative, my personal logs during the transformation. Use it however you see fit." Olivia took the drive, surprised by the gesture. "Why?" "Accountability," he said simply. "And perhaps a reminder that change, real change, is possible even for those who seem furthest from it." In the months that followed the rescue, the world buzzed with speculation about what had truly happened to Carson Blackwood. The official statement from Blackwood Technologies announced that their founder had survived the plane crash but had chosen to step back from public life, appointing a new leadership team focused on ethical innovation and environmental protection. The survivors shared their stories, though many details seemed so fantastical that media outlets treated them as trauma-induced exaggerations. Videos and images of the mysterious research facility in the Cascade Mountains circulated briefly online before being dismissed as elaborate hoaxes. Only Olivia Reed knew the full truth, backed by the data Blackwood had given her. True to her journalistic principles, she published a comprehensive exposé, not just of the cruel experiment that had been planned on the plane, but of the transformation that had followed. The article was met with equal parts fascination and disbelief. Then came the announcements: Blackwood Technologies establishing the world's largest animal rescue fund, revolutionary new wildlife monitoring systems being deployed in endangered habitats worldwide, patents for all of Blackwood's military technologies being permanently retired. Thunderbolt found a new home at a sanctuary established on land adjacent to the research facility, land that was simultaneously designated as a protected wilderness area under the stewardship of a trust with Olivia Reed among its board members. And occasionally, hikers in the remote regions of the Cascade Mountains would report strange sightings, a figure that moved with inhuman grace, observing the forest and its inhabitants from a distance. Rangers dismissed these accounts as mountain folklore, but those who had been on the plane knew better. Carson Blackwood had indeed disappeared from the world that knew him, but something new had emerged from that fateful fall. A being dedicated to repairing the damage its former self had caused, finding redemption in the very interconnectedness it had. Once dismissed, Olivia sometimes received anonymous messages containing coordinates that led to sites where animals needed rescue or habitats required protection. She never replied, but she always acted on the information, which unfailingly proved accurate. And on rare nights, visitors to the sanctuary might glimpse a strange silhouette standing beside Thunderbolt's paddock, man and horse, observer and observed, connected by an experience that had transformed them both. By morning, only unusual footprints would remain, too regular and precise to be human, yet purposeful in their path through the awakening world. Dear listeners, we hope you've been captivated by Olivia and Carson's extraordinary journey of transformation. What began as a story of exploitation evolved into one of redemption and connection with the natural world. Has a personal experience ever completely changed your perspective on life? We've created a special playlist featuring equally compelling stories of transformation that you can find by clicking the link to your left. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring you unique narratives that explore the complexity and possibility of change in human experience. Don't miss our upcoming content. What transformation awaits in our next story? We're eager to read your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.